Virginia is an old state, one of the oldest in America, and a member of the prestigious historical club that is the 13 Colonies. In fact, it might even have a claim at being the oldest state if you go back further than the ratification of the Constitution. The seed of America, it could be argued, was planted in Virginia soil. Meanwhile, Alaska's only land border is Canada. It's 55 miles from Russia at its closest point and 2,834 miles away from the American mainland. Importantly, Alaska is the 49th state, second only to Hawaii, in its newness to the Union as a state. Everything from landscape, history, and culture between these two states are different, which is why I think these two extremes can be most interesting and most helpful when compared. How does America's heart compare to its frontier? The topic which is being compared is perhaps the most basic. Housing and cost of living, because your healthcare, gun rights, and laws and all the other hot topics hardly matter if you can't afford to be there physically anyway. Now, I'm going to list my sources first, so I can just start laying out facts. I've got Rent Cafe, providing rent prices and averages. I've got PayScale, providing averages for housing, utilities, and groceries, along with its comparison to the national average. I've got Forbes' cost of living calculator to provide clarity as well. Finally, as a more unreliable but still curious source, I've compared these figures to the claims of residents on public forums to see if the stats line up with the alleged consensus of the state's populaces after my proper examination. First up, minimum wage, because in order for prices to matter, you need something to pay these costs with. Hopefully you have something better than minimum in either of these states if you're living alone, however. Alaska is currently sitting at $11.91 for its minimum wage, though this will be increased to $13 on July 1st, 2025. Alaskans have the benefit of not having a state income tax, though the federal government takes its toll still. Every week at full-time, you would get about $435 with that in mind. In a month, you would make $1,740. In Virginia, the minimum wage is $12.47, better than Alaska currently, but worse than it will be by July. Virginia is not exempt from state income tax fever as well, though it is more lenient with income brackets and shifting taxes to accommodate the poor better. Every week at full time, you'd make $458, and every month that would be $1,832. Now on to housing. Living in Anchorage, Alaska, is 25% higher in cost than the national average, but Richmond, Virginia sits at 5% lower than the national average. By this broad statistic, Virginia, or at least Richmond, is 35% cheaper to live in than its more Arctic counterpart. In housing specifically, Anchorage is 38% higher than average, and utilities it is 11% higher, and in groceries it is 26% higher. Richmond, on the other hand, is 15% lower in housing, and its utilities and groceries meet the national standard. Apartments in Anchorage seem to be anywhere from $1,000 to a bit over $2,000, while Virginia has a wider spread from only about $900 to $4,000 and over, which fits both its progressive leanings and its wealthy and established history. Zillow, the house-searching site, lists houses in Virginia for sale at less than $500,000 and lower still, while in Alaska the trend is certainly higher with some outliers. Why the last frontier is so expensive can be anything from droves of people with money wanting the serenity of the frost, or the additional fees of trying to run a state so far from the mainland and bordering the Arctic, but the numbers don't lie. It seems public discourse agrees as well, as much of my reading is about complaints about food and barely scraping by with the bills in Alaska. The government is more than aware of this as well, as I found a USDA document under the branch of the Children's Healthy Living Program detailing the costs of food. I suppose if anything can be taken from this, it's that there are plenty of benefits to civilization and infrastructure. Virginia is nestled deep in the United States and can afford to do things that places distant like Alaska, or likely our island territories, cannot. I know with rising costs in California, costs that were high to begin with, that many people, including myself and my family, have been considering moving to different states. It's easy to want to throw our hands up and move to some quiet, distant, isolated place like Alaska. But there are plenty of things we might miss, like family, a warm day, getting to see the sun in less desperate tones, and getting to see non-frozen water. And also cheap food. Getting to experience these things on a semi-regular basis is worth having to endure a more urban lifestyle, I think. Your wallet seems like it will agree with me.